Hey everybody, I thought I'd create a video on here that kind of speaks to the nature of justification and revenge and not getting what you want versus what you want. So basically it's like this. Imagine if you had a tough life. You had a tough childhood, you were born and raised in a home, a broken family, or maybe worse yet, I'm gonna get to this. This isn't what you're probably thinking. Maybe worse yet, you grew up in a home that was very safe, very structured, and yet you still had trauma. You had trauma that was passed along generationally from your parents, from your grandparents to your parents to you to the child, and you lived through that trauma, whether it was abuse, whether it was just a cyclical kind of low grade, kind of do this or that type of trauma where you're forced to do something you didn't really want to do. Maybe it was a religious background, maybe you hated going to church, maybe you were forced to go do it, maybe you were forced to practice a certain value that wasn't yours, and that brought on kind of a low grade trauma to your life. And eventually you grew up, you matured, you went through adolescent years, you grew through your young adult years, and now let's say you're in your 30s or 40s. I'm 42 years old right now. I've undergone a significant amount of inner healing work, to where I've gotten rid of most of my childhood trauma, if not all, and I've now worked on, or beginning to work on, generational trauma and past life trauma, which some of you, if you go deeper into that, you can just uncover a lot of shit, just a lot of stuff, which is amazing. It's fascinating. I think that we all have trauma no matter what. I mean, we're born into this world, we're pushed out of the womb when we don't really want to. We want to kind of remain cocooned in this womb, in our mother's womb. We're getting all the nutrients, all the oxygen that we need from our mothers, and all of a sudden, we get bigger. We don't really fit inside this little womb, and we want to burst out. And some of us we're forced out. Some of us we've been forced out through C-sections. We've been forced out through I don't know what the medical term is right now. It's not hitting me, but basically we've been forced out into the world against our own will, right? And some of us, we were ready. We were at a mature age. We were at 39, 40 weeks, and we bursted out of the womb normally. But for others, some of us have undergone that trauma where we were born at like 28 weeks, even sometimes before that, 24 weeks, which is like mesmerizing. If you were born before 30 weeks, I mean, God, that's traumatizing already. You automatically have that trauma attached to you. And we grow into these people, these human beings. We grow into these mature beings, and then we pick up on other traumas through life. We pick up on the trauma of growing up, and our parents telling us no, and they're spanking us, or they're hitting us, or they're crossing the lines of what they should or shouldn't be doing. And that's trauma, and a lot of us have that. And so we deal with that, and then we go through school, and we deal with the trauma from bullies, and we go through adult life, and things happen. Like some of us, we've experienced bombings and shootings and terrorists. We've experienced car accidents and job losses, and all that's trauma. We've experienced sickness and disease. All that's trauma. We've experienced climate disasters. That's trauma as well. We've experienced financial disasters. That's trauma. So we all need to heal that shit. If you're watching this, you need to go out and heal that shit. You need to heal your trauma. It's going to help you become a better human being. You already are a great human being, but there's still trauma there, and it could be getting in the way of you fulfilling your lifelong purpose, you fulfilling just a more how do I say it, a greater experience in your humanity, basically, is what the word is coming to right now. Sorry guys, I'm at work right now, and it's just, my brain is kind of racked. I slept for about 12 hours last night, which is amazing. Sometimes I only get like 4 or 5 hours of sleep. But I'm sitting here at work again, and I want to experience, and I want to tell you all, sometimes in life we grow up with this trauma, right? We're born into this world, we go through life, we experience trauma, and then we reach our mature age, we reach our full adulthood, in our 30s and 40s, and then we begin to age kind of after that, like in our 50s and 60s, and we slowly decline. And so what happens is, like, imagine if you grew up in this perfect environment, and people told you that I'm starting to stutter. I don't know why. Lately I've been stuttering lately. It's been weird. Lately, imagine if you grew up in this perfect environment and you were told to do things a certain way, or to be somebody that you weren't, and to be something that you weren't, and to do something that you aren't, or to do. And you grew up that way, right? And all of a sudden, you go back to that environment, okay? Imagine if you go back to that environment and all of a sudden the very thing that you were told to not do, those people are doing it. And now you've gotten to a point where you've healed and you've grown, but you haven't told those people that you've done that. And all of a sudden now they're acting in such a way that you were afraid to go and truly be yourself, but now they're doing it. And it's ticking you off because you had to hide your true self. Imagine how you would feel. Like, let's say your family, you go back to your family and they abused you or they hurt you, and they talked about nonstop shit about you and backstabbed you and everything in the book, basically. They're terrible to you, basically. And they did things that pissed you off, that annoyed you, and essentially that's low-grade trauma, right? And imagine if you go back and all of a sudden they're like, I don't know, they're different people now. They're like, they're acting in a way that's different from what they normally acted like. Wouldn't that piss you off? I mean, wouldn't that sincerely tick you off? Like, for example, maybe you went back home and your brother, sister, your sibling, they were like trash talking somebody that you used to grow up with, and you admired and you valued them, and all of a sudden now, later in life, you basically had to keep the same face around your siblings, thinking that they still looked up to that person. And all of a sudden now they're trash talking them, and you kept yourself basically hidden. You kept your mouth shut. And now they're trash talking them, and it took a lot of energy for you to remain at that level. And all of a sudden now they're just hunky-dory, they're just going along trash talking this person, and they're living their life, and they're not caring about your thoughts or your emotions behind that person. And it's changed you. And now all of a sudden they're just like, I'm going to do whatever I want, and there's not going to be consequences. You'd be ticked off. I feel like you'd be ticked off. I would be ticked off. And that's essentially kind of what's happened to me in my life. Is my family is changing. They're doing things that are like, whoa guys, what are you doing here? Like, 5 years ago you weren't like that at all, and now all of a sudden you're changing. You're rewriting the book, essentially the script, and you're leaving me behind, and you're saying that I gotta kind of live like this. It's kind of like this unspoken rule. It's kind of what I'm trying to get at here, is like an unspoken rule where you have to live at a certain level to keep them happy. And that's not right, guys. That's not how we're supposed to live. We're supposed to speak our authentic truth, live our authentic selves, so that we can raise humanity's awareness and consciousness, and it keeps them from growing as well if we don't do that. And so all of a sudden now you're seeing them, and they've like grown, so to speak, and they're different, and all of a sudden you kept it in to try and please them. You'd be ticked off. You'd be essentially pissed off. And so I guess the lesson of this video is, everyone's going to change eventually in their life, whether they're 10 years old or 50 years old or 90 years old. Eventually they're going to change. They're not going to care anymore about your values, your expectations of them. Life's going to throw a curveball at them. You don't know when that curveball is going to hit. You don't know when that's going to make a change in your family, in your friendships, your relationships. So don't expect people to live up to your values and your expectations, because they could already be changed already. They might just be hiding it right now. And so, I grew up in a very kind of religious household. My parents both went to church every Sunday. They expected us to go. They expected us to believe in, you know, this higher power, like God, essentially, the God of the Bible, Jesus Christ, you know. And I eventually grew out of that. I don't even go to church anymore, guys. I don't care to go. It's not my thing. I've passed on from that stuff, and I've forged my own path, and I just feel like my family's still kind of stuck at that energetic level. And I go back this past weekend, and you know, I see my brother, which my older brother, he wasn't always really religious. He wasn't really always. I kind of sensed that he was kind of like not really into that, and he didn't really believe in it, and he just kind of went along with it, I guess. And I was a little more fervent, I guess is the word, than him when it came to religion and spirituality and stuff. But he, I don't want to go into it, but like he's basically, I go back and my dad and him are just sitting on the couch on Sunday morning. I'm like thinking, shouldn't they be at church? Like, you guys, I'm visiting for the weekend, so it's like I didn't have my church clothes. My wife and I, we're not going to church. Like, she's not going to go, and like she doesn't want to go, and like, so they're sitting there on the couch, and I'm just thinking like, oh my God. I was like, I guess they don't go to church anymore. So that right there was kind of like a big awakening for me. It was a big sign. I was like, oh, they're kind of like not really living up to what they preach, basically, you know, like what they live out. And I was like, yeah, the only person in my family is like my mom now, I guess, who goes to church, and she's really hyper like religious, I feel like, and just goes every Sunday, Wednesday, like always volunteering in every single program you can think of. And it's just like, you need to slow down. But I guess what I'm trying to get at really is, don't think for a minute that people are going to live up to your expectations, because they're not. And don't think for a minute that you should live up to theirs, because chances are they've already changed, they've already grown, and they want you to grow. They want you to reach a level of awareness where you can grow into the best version of yourself and not be bogged down by religious dogmas and religiosity, and just those things that we need to rise above all these to make a better world, you know. And so a lot of you will probably think this, you know, video is just outright absurd and wrong, and that's okay. You know, I'm not here to question your religious beliefs. I'm not here to I want you to examine your spirituality and your background and your values. But for me, going back to the whole point was just, you know, this video was like, what if the very thing that you're trying to hide from is keeping you from really growing, because the people that you're trying to hide it from have already grown themselves, and they're doing the very thing that you wanted to do, which is now pissing you off. So that's kind of the whole point of the video in 30 seconds, essentially. Hope you're all doing good, you know, and just think about where you're going with your life, you know, the people in it, and what you think, what you feel. And yeah, you know, it's just one of those things that I was thinking today at work. I was like, man, you know, that would really tick me off if that happened. And I think it has, in a way, with my family and with my friends, you know. So yeah, hope you're all doing good.